One of the best ways to improve your own writing is to study other writing, to take a look at masterworks in the genre that you're trying to write in and slow down and don't just read them, but study them and see how the books are crafted, how the individual scenes are crafted, and how the authors put their stories down on the page. If there's one thing you could take all of StoryGrid and boil it down to, it's this idea. Analyzing the masterworks, the books that have stood the test of time, that are at the top of their genre, seeing how they're crafted and applying what you learn to your own writing. This is what Shawn started to do 30 years ago. He's the creator and founder of StoryGrid, and he's been in publishing for over 30 years as a writer, researcher, and foremost, an editor. And so he would get these books that would come across his desk. He would find the problems in them, articulate them to the writers, and help them actually fix their books. Now, what's amazing is the books that Shawn has worked on over the years as a writer or editor have gone on to sell millions and millions of copies. In fact, I went and checked, and of all the books that he's worked on and been involved in and making sure they come out their absolute best, they're 2.5 times more likely than across the entire traditional publishing industry to be profitable and successful. And so if you actually do the work to understand how stories are put together, how they're crafted, and how they're well written, and then you apply those principles to your own writing, you're going to become much better, and your books are much more likely to become successful, be read by lots of people, and passed on to other writers and readers. So in this video, we're going to take a look at the first scene in the book, The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. We're going to look at how it's structured. We're going to look at the 5 commandments, the objects of desire, and a couple other things so you can get a feel for how she put together this particular scene and why it works so well. So let's jump in and take a look. Now, if you haven't read the scene yet, I highly recommend you do. It's linked down in the description so that you can read it and understand what I'm doing as I go through and look for all of these things. But the first thing I'm always looking for is the inciting incident. The inciting incident is the ball of chaos that comes into your protagonist's life and knocks their life off of balance. But when I say that, the first thing I'm saying is the protagonist. So who is the protagonist of your scene? How do you know who is the protagonist of any given scene? Well, they are the one whose life has gotten knocked off balance. So they think they have a plan of how their day is going to go, that they know what's going to happen next, and then something comes into their life and knocks their life off balance. So in this particular scene, it's this arrival of this little girl that knocks Prospero the Enchanter's life off balance. So Prospero the Enchanter is the protagonist, and it's this girl showing up that knocks his life off balance. Now, when I first read through this, I thought this was the inciting incident. When the girl shows up with a note pinned to her that is a suicide note from her mother. But at this point, Prospero the Enchanter isn't at the office. He doesn't even know this has happened. And so this hasn't knocked his life off balance yet. And you could come up with a scenario where the lawyer actually gets rid of the girl. Now, that's not what he ends up doing. So because it's this girl arriving that knocks his life off balance, it's when that actually happens. When his life is knocked off balance by that inciting incident, that's where we're going to tag it. So that's going to be down here. So as the magician, as Prospero the Enchanter comes into the office, his manager says, "There is also a package for you, sir." And the magician scans the office. He's expecting to find something else. But it's when the girl looks up with his own eyes does he realize what the theater manager was referring to. So this is the inciting incident. He thought he was just going to come into his office, sort his mail, do whatever his normal morning routine is, and instead this girl is sitting in his office. And so this is the inciting incident. Now remember, the inciting incident is the first of 5 commandments. 5 commandments track the change in your writing and make sure some value has shifted. And the first one we're looking for is the inciting incident. But then we have to also find the turning point, the crisis, the climax, and the resolution. Now, I find the climax is the easiest thing to find. It's the second easiest thing to find. The first is the inciting incident. So now I want to find the climax. And the climax is where the protagonist acts on his decision. And we're going to come back to what that decision is. But it's when he acts on his decision, and it has to arise from the inciting incident. It's almost like it has to answer the inciting incident, because the question at this point is, what is he going to do about this girl? And when he answers it, it's down here where he says, "You might be interesting." And this is where he decides to actually keep her. He's going to keep her on. So we're going to tag that as the climax. So if you've read through the scene, you know what the crisis is, right? So we're going to put the crisis here right before the climax because that's what he's trying to decide. So the crisis is, will he keep her or not? So we can see now that the inciting incident is the girl showing up. And then the crisis is he going to actually keep her or not? And the climax is he does decide to keep her. So before we get to the turning point, I want to talk about the object of desire. So you want to be able to pinpoint what the protagonist wants, and it has to come out of the inciting incident. And so in a vague sort of sense, because this inciting incident knocked his life off balance, he wants to get his life back to normal. That's really what he wants. He wants to get rid of this problem. All he sees is this daughter is a problem. We can see that in the first line after the inciting incident, where Prospero the Enchanter's immediate reaction upon meeting his daughter is a simple declaration of, well, fuck. That just cracks me up. I mean, it's horrific, but it's also kind of funny. So we've got to see what his object of desire is. And we always phrase the object of desire in a particular way. So we say object of desire, the protagonist wants A without having to B. And this is where all of the tension of any scene that you're writing comes from, is this tension between what the protagonist wants, but what they're not willing to give up or not willing to do in order to get it. And that becomes the tension in the entire scene. And this is how it works in real life, right? We all want things. We all have things that we want that we don't currently have. And the reason we don't currently have them is because we have something else we're not willing to give up. So if we want a brand new Tesla, but we don't want to go into debt to get it and we don't have the cash. So that creates tension between what we want and what we're willing to do to get it. And so in this particular case, the protagonist wants something, but he also wants something else. So I think we can safely say at this point, the protagonist wants to not be bothered by this girl showing up. I think that's pretty safe. We would all agree on that. The protagonist wants to not be bothered by this girl showing up. This is a bother to him, and so he wants to just get rid of this. And so let's go through the scene and see if we can figure out B. What is he not wanting to give up that actually creates the tension? So he closes the door, he rips the envelope from her coat, he skims over the contents of a suicide note of the mother of his daughter and doesn't bother him at all. In fact, the only thing he has to say is that she didn't name the daughter properly. And at this point, the daughter, Celia, gets annoyed and she uses magic here to knock the teacup off of the table. And right here, this is where we see everything start to shift. And we're going to come back to this line. But this point, the magician's smile vanishes and he puts the teacup back together, but you can tell that everything's changed. And so at this point, we realize, why would he keep her? Like, what is the crisis here? If he obviously doesn't care about the mom, doesn't really care about the daughter, it doesn't seem like he's the type of guy that would think twice about just kicking this daughter out and sending her to some orphanage somewhere. But now he's hesitating, and we know it comes to this crisis of, will he keep her or not? So what does he get by keeping her? Well, he gets magic. He gets access to a little girl that can do magic, and he is also a magician. So do you think him having access to more magic is a good thing for him? Absolutely. So he wants to get rid of the girl. He wants to not be bothered by this girl, but he doesn't want to give up a chance at magic. So without having to give up a chance for access to more magic. So this is the object of desire. And you can see where this creates tension in the scene, is that he doesn't want to be bothered by this girl, but here she sits and he's probably going to just get rid of her until she does magic. And that is where I come back to this line. This is the turning point of our scene. So I always say the turning point is when your protagonist realizes they can't have their cake and eat it too. So Prospero the Enchanter wants all the magic he possibly can for his magic show, But he also doesn't want to be bothered by annoying things like his daughter showing up and actually needing something. And that creates the tension. And this is where we see at the climax, he decides to keep her. And then finally, we have the resolution, which is what happens as a result of his decision, which is where she stays. He tries to change her name and she refuses. So this is going to be the resolution. Now, what I want to point out about the turning point is it has to create a situation of irreversibility, meaning the protagonist can no longer go back to the way things were before. So if this daughter wasn't magical and she showed up on his doorstep, he wouldn't really have much of a crisis based on how he's responding to the suicide note and just the daughter being there in general. He probably wouldn't have any trouble just getting rid of her. And so he would either kick her back out onto the street, send her to an orphanage, whatever, and he would just go on about his day like it never happened. But at the point that he realizes that she's magical, it creates this situation where he's never going to go back to where he was at the beginning of the scene. If he does kick her out, send her to an orphanage and get rid of her, well, now he's lost access to that magic forever. So just him finding out that she is magical is all it takes to rock his life to the point where he can never go back to the way things were at the beginning of the scene. And so he's forced to move forward. In our scene writing workshops, I see this all the time with our students' scenes where they don't push this hard enough. And at any point, really, the protagonist can just make a decision to go back to the way things were at the beginning, and it's not that big a deal. And so this is one of the checks you have to have when you're writing your scenes is the turning point strong enough to push my protagonist into a space where they can't go back to the way things were? Because if Prospero keeps the girl, he gets access to the magic, but now he's got to deal with this girl. That's not how things were. If he does get rid of her, he's stuck in this world where he could have had access to magic and he chose to get rid of it, and he's going to have regret because of that. And so this is such a fun little scene to look at because it's a great scene of two people meeting for the first time. It's not very long, but all of the pieces are in there. The inciting incident, the object of desire, the turning point, crisis, climax, and resolution. And so this is a great scene to study and look at how two people can meet for the first time and how you can create great tension within that scene. Now, if you want to keep going with this, I've done several other of these scene breakdowns. A link to one of them is going to pop up on your screen shortly. If you're wondering who I am, my name is Tim Grahl. I'm the CEO of StoryGrid, and I'm the author of The Threshing, Running Down a Dream, and Your First 1,000 Copies. If you want to find out more about StoryGrid, go to storygrid.com. We have tons of great free resources for you there, and make sure you sign up for the newsletter. That's where we send out all the latest and greatest stuff. But as always, thanks for being a writer. Thanks for being a part of our community here at StoryGrid, and I'll see you next time.